Hey crew. Hey crew.
Hello.
I am currently with one of my favorite people, Ruth of Heartbeats Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's a
Yeah,
pleasure to be here with my favorite, her specs.
I love
So,
you. I love you. Um,
mhm.
so if you know us or if you don't, we both have brands that are similar in that we talk a lot about love and friendship, singleness. What's the other one? Well, for me, self-love, uh, and
Marriage
marriage,
from
relationship
singles.
from single. Yeah. And so I've been doing a series called Fatherhood, where I have conversations with different fathers, Black, Hispanic, and what I'm doing is I want to create a new narrative. The media doesn't do the best job of presenting these men in the best light. And
Right.
so yeah, that's what I've been doing, just trying to change the narrative and honor and celebrate these beautiful fathers. So this is a different type of episode because obviously we are not fathers. We are,
Surprise.
right? That's right. We have fathers.
Yeah.
Um, my father is deceased. My biological father is deceased, and I have a stepfather. And Ruthie's father is, of course, living. And yeah, I want to kind of just talk about how our fathers have influenced us, just celebrating them, just being authentic and what our experiences have been with having the fathers that we've had. Yeah, and just hopefully someone can relate and resonate and be encouraged and inspired by the end of this conversation. So,
And Jess, you said something too that not only has the narrative not been great around Black and Hispanic fathers, but just in general, there's a narrative of fathers don't matter. It's confusing, it's like they're it's confusing. It's like, oh, they either have not done their job or, do we really need them? And I think however we talk about it, it's, fathers are important and they play a huge role in both their sons' lives, their daughters' lives, or whatever mix they have. So,
well, let's just talk about simple Father's Day, period, versus a little bit of debate. Mother's Day, like just the way it's commercialized. Mother's Day, with the flowers and the candy and the making reservations at restaurants, and it's there's the big thing, and then you have Father's Day, and you barely see a commercial.
Yeah.
Probably me more so now, but yeah, it's not really, talked about, and you kind of like, to me visually as a kid growing up, I would be like, oh, it's a struggle.
Right.
Like, where's the commercials? Where are the people talking about, the fathers and how we can celebrate them? And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's depending on your own personal experience, it can be a day of pain.
True.
Or it can be a day of celebration. But I do think, you and I are coming at this from a Christian perspective, and just the need to encourage the men that we do know that you and I both know a lot of fathers of all ranges of ages. And we want to, our mission is to build them up and help them recognize like how important they are and how they're doing an amazing job.
Absolutely.
Parents aren't perfect, but
there's no guidebook. There's no guide.
Right.
I mean, there is a Bible.
Right.
Right. But there's no, this is something that with that said, you really have to be led by God to know what to do. And not that you won't make mistakes, but yeah.
Absolutely.
In God. So one of my, we'll start out with a question. One of my things that I want to know, what's your fondest memory? And this is me. If you don't know me, I always have my notes. Not too far.
Just as famous notebook.
But I don't want to be like Ruthie. She is so good. No, honestly, she's so good with not having notes and just kind of going off the dump. But
Oh my goodness.
what's your fondest memory of your father, or fondest memory that you have with your father?
You know, it's kind of a random memory, but I think it speaks to just how I view my dad overall. But our family grew up doing a lot of road trips.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 4 kids, 2 parents, you know, we weren't flying places. Very rarely did we ever get into an airplane. So we drove, and we drove sometimes up to 20, 22 hours, depending on where we were going. And there was just this this memory, this picture of my dad was always at the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
He was always the one driving until, you know, us kids got a little older to help out. But he was always at the driver's seat. My mom was next to him, and my mom's job was, you know, she was the sidekick. She would read, she would make sure, you know, are you hungry? Do you need anything? She'd rub his neck. But there was this sense of, if my dad was at the driver's seat, I didn't have to worry about a thing. Like there was just this, it's like ease of like, my dad's at the driver's seat and we're going to get where we need to go. And when I tell you, there were a lot of times on trips, our car would break down.
Yeah.
Our van, something would go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always this sense though of like easement of like, my dad though, but my dad, he got this.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. And as a kid, you think your dad knows everything. You think he's got it all under control. But for and even to this day though, if I'm with my dad, I'm like, oh, I don't, he got it. He knows what's up. He knows what he's doing. And so there was always the sense that he was directing, he was leading, we were protected, we knew where we were going. He would sometimes off-road it. You know, he was like, traffic, please. I'll find an alternate route.
Right. They know.
They know. And I have to say that this is before apps, you know, the Waze app that's like, all right, alternate route ahead. No, my dad would just be like, all right, I'm just going to take us in this direction. But again, there was never this anxiety of like, are we going to get where we need to go? So I love that about my father, that there was this sense of security, the sense of, you know, he's leading the family. We know where we're going. And I still view him in that way today.
I love that.
What about you?
I actually, while you're talking, so yes, I have several memories of my father, and I was gonna take kind of like piggyback off of you when we would take road trips. Ooh, look. What kind of Apple Music just coming on for no reason? What? Okay.
I was like, what thing is that?
Oh wait, you know what? Siri thought I asked her a question, and she thought I was talking about music. So yeah, I do have a lot of memories of taking road trips down south to visit my grandmother and the rest of the family. But I was like, no, this specifically. So my father was a janitor for my daycare, the daycare that I attended from maybe 1 or 2 to 5. And so I just remember being in classrooms. There were like 5 different classrooms for different ages. Sometimes it's so crazy how I can remember certain things from very young, but then last week I'm like, what did I do? So I'm thinking about one day, which happened often, but learning, right? So the teacher is teaching us, and he comes in to sweep, right? And I remember and this was the kids used to be like, your father's here. And I would be so excited. Like, yeah.
That's my dad.
Yeah. But knowing he was in the building.
Yeah.
And when because if your class is lining up and going through the hallways, imagine like looking over and seeing your father maybe like,
oh yeah,
crash or doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember feeling like you said, first of all, I'm already like, I'm done. Done. Can I have some? Yeah, thank you.
Here you go, girl. I got you.
How are we going to get through this? I can't. So I remember, y'all, I don't even know why I chose to do this. I don't even know if I could get through. So I remember like you said, just feeling a sense of like, my father is here. He's in the building.
Yeah.
And if I need him, I can like I have access to him. And just always getting hype, like when I did see him in the hallway, or when he came into the class to take out the trash, the kids were like, "Your dad, hi, Mr. Jones." And so, yeah.
I love that.
This is crazy. We just started this video.
No, but it's true. I love,
Okay.
Even watching my nieces and nephews now, with my brothers, or
Yeah.
even, my father as their grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
just how excited they are to show off, their daddy, or we call my dad Jita. He's not grandpa, he's Jita. Yeah, that like pride of like, wait, that's my dad.
Yep.
That's real.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Fathers they're just needed. They're needed. They're needed. And when their presence is not there, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And,
I think, I was thinking about this, how much my dad helped calm me down,
mm-hmm.
And there are times, he and I would rile one another up, but um as all good father-daughter relationships happen at some point. But honestly, I say it as if he has a very calming presence in my life as well. And I can think of times growing up where I would be so anxious or so worried.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was the type of kid that would sort of bottle it up. I was, I would think I was a deep thinker, so I would be thinking a lot before I actually said something out loud.
Right.
And it would amaze me how my dad never, when I would say something and I thought it would be like, you're gonna think I'm crazy, right? I would say something and my dad would just, it was almost this like poker face of like, yeah, yeah. And then he would speak some wisdom into my heart, and it would just calm me down. Like it normalized what I was feeling.
Right.
And again, even to this day, I know I can call my dad and be like,
yeah. I love
and he can speak a word of wisdom and speak calmness. And I just think it's so important how much parents and educators, whoever, sort of normalize what a kid is feeling. And I'm not saying that there are, obviously to certain extents, there's, if it's a certain thing, like you gotta take care of that. Like there are things that no, that's not a good thought.
Right.
But in terms of just like, calm down.
Right.
Like what you're experiencing right now is normal, and I'm going to help you through it. That was so big for me. Yeah.
Your father brought calmness to your life.
Yeah. Calm. Yes.
I love that. Unfortunately, I don't, my father and I didn't have a lot of, and so when I talk about father, I'm talking, of course, about my biological father, for the sake of this conversation. My stepdad is great. And hopefully, guys, I can get to a place where we can have a conversation that he would want to be recorded. Like we do talk, but I want to record a conversation.
Right.
He's not ready for that yet. So
in due time. It's coming.
Right? But my father, right? So my biological father, we didn't have a lot of in-depth conversations due to various reasons, but when my father and my mother were married, he definitely brought safety and fun. And that's probably for a lot of children. The mother is the person that carried you for 9 months and kind of is like, I guess for many, the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
Right? And so fathers can be a little not as hands-on. Not that many aren't, but they're not as structured in a way. And so I just remember having a lot of, not a lot, but fun with my
Yeah.
father, you know? So whether it was me climbing on him or um, I was thinking about some of the silly faces that he used to just kind of do. And then I don't know if my mother remembers this, but he would like act silly and dance. And we were like,
Yes.
what? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, that. But it was his moments of like silliness or silly faces or just bringing some fun to the
Yeah.
house. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's cool because, you know, I never got a chance to meet your father, but I know, and I'm not saying this as an over emotional. I know it, that Jess, you're so silly and goofy in a beautiful way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when our friends all get together, we know we're going to have a good time. We know we're going to laugh a lot.
Yeah.
And Jess, you help bring that like lightheartedness. Sometimes we be talking about something serious and then Jess just busts out with this like, yo, let me just show you what. You'll just like reenact something and we're all like, oh my gosh. And I know that that's something you get from your father, that's you see his qualities passed on to you.
Yeah.
You bring the fun.
You really have a way with words. You see this guy? He knows how to make a girl so, maybe a little bit more serious question. How has your father helped shape you into the woman you are today? And that's probably a ending question for this, but we're gonna start there. We're gonna
I know, because this could be a big one, right? Oh boy. You know, I will say there's a couple things. Well, first of all, my father is like one of my biggest fans.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you talk, Jess, about how dads are a little more unstructured, a little bit more like free, like, yes, like, you know, run outside in the winter with no coat on, like just go be crazy, right? And, when I had heard about the program that ultimately brought me to New York City, you know, I'm 21 at the time, had the most I'd lived away from my family had been, you know, like 3 months. And here I am looking, and, you know, an internship, you know, several hours away, but mostly I have been around. And so here I am looking to move, thinking about moving to New York City, and one of the biggest cities in the world. And, you know, I have a physical disability I was born with that makes just walking more challenging. You know, I can walk, but it's just that much more challenging, right? And so it's easy to limit yourself or have other people limit you. And I remember when I got this email about this program, and I was living with my parents at the time, and I read it out loud to them, like, what y'all think? Because in my head I was like, wait, this is kind of too good of an opportunity to pass up. And my mom, you know, classic protective mom, was like, ooh, ooh, and my dad was like, what you waiting for? You know? And that was like well, all right. What am I waiting for? You know, he really sort of empowered me to like, girl, go. Don't let anything hold you back. Pursue that dream. Pursue that call. And he's always encouraged that. You know, he's always spoken sort of that, here's what I see and you can do this and I'm proud of you. And so that's given me, you know, you think about that, that's given me confidence as a woman to really like show up as my full self, you know, to show up as like, I don't need to tone it down, I don't need to be less of something. It's just like, no, you go.
Yeah.
So I think there's always been a sense of him on his end empowering me to show up as your full, amazing, beautiful self. He raised both my sister and I that way. And I think too, I was thinking about this as well. My dad is a fighter. All right. And I don't mean walking around trying to pick fights with people, but I did not know this. Jess, you know, the beauty of vantage point, you know, the beauty of like years where you can look back and be like, you can see things more clearly, right? I did not understand this about my father until honestly a few years ago, where I was like, wait, hold up. My dad is a fighter. Like I saw him standing up for things as a kid that I didn't pick up on until an adult. Like, wait, he was one of the only people in this situation standing up. And he was willing to do that in front of a group of people that didn't agree with him. And because
the apple.
Yeah.
From the tree. Is that the same?
Yes. And that's what I mean is that when he has sort of helped me kind of step into that, like
you embody that. Definitely.
That's what and I didn't realize, like, wait, that's not something I got on my own. And then in fact, it turns out my grandfather, his father, similar things. So just that fighter of like, no, oh no, we're not gonna just sit back and let
for sure
people just say those things or do those things. No, you have a voice. And that is something that he really modeled. I didn't know it, but he modeled. And then as an adult, he's continued to do that. And he's also, again, encouraged my own voice. Girl, speak it. And then when he sees that I, said something, or he'll be like,
yes. I like that. You definitely, I said the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree because you just have you have a fighting, like you said, not physical, but fighting spirit. You kind of do, just sounds weird, and help me with what I'm trying to say, but you don't necessarily follow the crowd. You know what I mean? And so if you believe in something, you're going to stand on it, regardless of what other people are saying or what they think you should say or do. You are just like, no, like, this is what I believe, and this is the truth. And I don't have to go along with you because you've done that or you've been doing that for years. No, like, and even over the years, people evolve and mindsets, perspectives change. And so, I just appreciate you being you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, you truly have helped me find more of my voice as well. And I think you said something important about we're ever evolving. And, I've seen my dad evolve. I've seen my dad where, growing up, it's tough because at what point do you start talking to your kids about certain things?
Right.
If someone knows the manual on that, let me know. But like, so there were times as an older kid, I was like, why did we never talk about that? And it's like, well, you were 14. Were you going to talk about, was this the time to be discussing these issues? I don't know. And so now as an adult, we're, me and my father and my siblings and my mom, we're all conversing about things like, a lot of social issues, a lot of politics, faith issue, faith topics, the whole gamut. And I think that I assumed my father thought certain things growing up. And then as an adult, I'm like, wait. But there's this evolvement. And I think it is important that as people, we allow ourselves to be challenged and we allow ourselves to grow and I've seen my dad do that in a variety of ways.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How about you, girl?
My father, he's taught me so much. Definitely helped shape me into the woman I am. The thing is, uh, my father, if you guys don't know, my father had he was an alcoholic, right? He had a alcohol problem, right? And so I've just I've tried to, kind of like take a path of learning the opposite of what he's done. The negative parts, and try to do the opposite. But also, as I've gotten older, I've tried to see, like, what, there were some good things that I can take. There's a saying, eat
Yeah.
them and spit out the bone, right? Yeah,
Mm.
like I think no parent is perfect. And so I do think that there are some things that we can learn, whether they are from the negative or from the positive.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when I was a kid, my father has, I think the last grade he was in was 8th grade. I think he didn't go to high school. And I think he told me that. He told me that was the last level that he ended. So he didn't really know how to read. And when I was a kid, hooked on phonics was a big thing. And
Yep.
we had it for my father. We had it for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would just allow me to teach him. I'm telling you,
Wait.
sorry for the crying.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the crying because it's just gonna happen. Yeah, that's it. Anyway,
That's actually huge. Say that again, though.
he would allow me to teach him. So I remember this Hooked on Phonics came in this like plastic with cassette tapes and cards.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember he would probably take it down from the closet off the shelf, and then he would sit in a chair, and then I would take the cards out and be like, I would flash them in front of him. I don't remember listening to the cassettes, but maybe we did. But I would say, E, Ed. Like, I remember going through that whole like stage with him, and him being very open for me to teach him. Now, I think about it now, I'm like, this man he could probably give, read sounds and things like that. But he kind of just went along with that. I don't know. In my head, I'm like, maybe he thought it was just a time to bond or play with me. And the fact that I didn't want to be a teacher growing up, that was when people asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never said teacher. It was like lawyer. I remember saying mommy. I remember saying painter. Not even like paint like a Michelangelo, right? It was kind of like I wanted to paint walls,
Right.
like in houses, because my father was a janitor and he helped the super in my building. And so kind of him taking me on different, I was with him a lot of places, seeing him paint, come home with paint on his that's so funny how things
Yes, absolutely.
life goes on. And so he was in another video with my cousin. A lot of times we talk about this. A lot of times he would ask me and children, what do you want to be when you grow up? We would listen to them. What I never asked my father, unfortunately, sorry, and I'm all over the place a little bit, but what I never asked him was what he wanted to be. I'm not sure if that was his goal, to be a janitor. It probably was just to make ends meet, or just to have, finances, but I never asked him that, and I wish I would. But just me, even in my life right now, I'm a teacher, and I've been a teacher for a while, but not too long ago, my mother reminded me kind of like of what my father kind of like was instilling, like, you could be anything. And I remember when I was unemployed and looking for another teaching job, I was only looking for teaching jobs. And my mother said, you're more than a teacher. Meaning, like, you can do other things, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Just not that. And I feel like my father kind of had that same attitude, in which, like, you could be anything you want.
Yes.
Like, don't limit yourself. Like, you can do whatever you want to do and be whatever you want to be. My father thing, though, was like, just make money. Make a lot of money doing it. He would be like, make a lot of money doing it. Like a lawyer, you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor. So fields that I didn't go into, although I thought about being a lawyer. He definitely was inspiring in that way. And so as I teach my kids, I'm like, yeah, you guys can do and be anything you want. And so, yeah, just that optimism. My father, I feel like, was very optimistic and hopeful. He struggled with a lot, right?
Yeah.
He struggled with a lot, and I'm sure my mother has her story, but I can only give how I saw him.
Yeah. Yep.
But he was. I don't think I've ever seen my father sad. I don't.
Mm.
Everything I feel like he probably went through as a kid, even as an adult, being married, being a father, having the struggling with alcohol. I don't.
Mm.
I don't think I've seen him sad, or not for a very long time.
Right.
No.
Right. Wow. You know, Jess, when you were talking, it reminded me of how, your dad asking that question, what do you want to be? That's really a question that's like asking kids or asking somebody to dream.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is as we get older, our dreams die, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. I'm not trying to be, pessimistic, but they can, right? We sort of, the realities of life set in. And I think one of the greatest gifts of childhood um that is hard to tap into as an adult is to continue dreaming.
Right.
And one of the things I've loved about you and some of our friends is you still have dreams.
Mm-hmm.
You still have, like, you're still asking the question, what do I want to do? I'm still asking that question. It's like we're still dreaming, but just as you were talking, we both had fathers that encouraged that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They didn't use those words, but they used different questions. They used different reactions to sort of give us the freedom to dream. And especially as females, we're coming at this from like a female, obviously a daughter father
Yeah.
relationship. I think as females, I'll tell you that at least me growing up, I sort of thought, well, this is what I got to do as a woman. As a Christian woman, my job is to be a wife and a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And those are great, great dreams and great desires.
Mm-hmm.
Still things that I desire after.
Yes.
But that ain't the final. That's not
Absolutely.
that's not all it is. That's not it. Um so there was sort of this sense though of what I see with your dad and my dad of pushing us to what do you want to do? How do you want to show up in this world? What value do you want to bring? I think is very important.
I think a lot of, just kind of having years to like reflect. And after he has passed, and before, I used to think, I'm like, I think a lot of times why he was able to like push me was because he didn't have that. He didn't take advantage of that time. I'm not gonna say not that he didn't have the chance to, but maybe he didn't take advantage of that time, or maybe he didn't have the chance to. But sometimes he was like, Mel will say this a lot. A lot of times he feels like I was like his prize, and so you feel like that. If you feel like, I feel like sometimes parents, if they weren't able to accomplish something, they kind of like push
Yes.
their kids, and that's it's funny because that's the way I feel like it should be. I'm like, and you hear this, parents are like, I want you to be better than me. I want you to do more than I did.
Yeah.
So I do think that was my dad's attitude and way of seeing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, my dad said that. I remember my dad saying to me something like, um, basically he was so proud of me because I was doing something he didn't have the courage to do when he was younger, which is, you know, he had always wanted to live in New York and become, I think he said, become an actor.
Look
He
at
was like, I
yes.
always want to live in New York,
Yeah, I had a
become
conversation
an,
with him. He said he's interested in like the theater and film and stuff.
yeah. And and here I was living in New York, not being an actor, but doing something that I really wanted to do.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, now, and that really kind of, now that you're saying it, kind of gave more weight to him being like, what you waiting for? Like, don't let anything over here stop you from going.
Mhm.
So just what you were saying, I think there was definitely a sense of, I don't want you to hold yourself back
Yes.
in the way that he felt
Hmm.
he held himself back.
And you probably answered this question too, but it's similar. How are you similar to your father and or different? With what you've said, I feel like we do kind of understand that, but
No, well, I mean, I'll say another aspect of that is we're both very expressive people in that both of my parents are expressive, so I get it from both sides.
mhm.
But my dad, the way he shows up in life, it's not just the way he talks or, you know, his facial expressions. It's also just, you spend time with big hugs
Yeah,
and
strong.
big, strong. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, like you're like, whoa. Um,
Right.
strong hugs,
Yeah.
big expressions of love and appreciation. He just shows up in this expressive way. You know what he's thinking or feeling. I mean, not to full, but he's no poker face, right? He can if he has to, but and that also means that part of expressiveness, he feels things deeply. Like we're both very like expressive, sensitive people. Like we feel things deeply. And so, the way that I show up, that's very much the same. Is, I this wasn't just a good meal, it was like the best meal. It wasn't um you want people to see your love, your heart for them, and we just experience life on a deep level. Um and I really, that's something that I got from my father. And I honestly, growing up, I didn't necessarily see that as a gift.
Mhm.
A lot of people, when they hear sensitive, just hear like, oh, your feelings are just hurt all the time.
Yep.
Mm-mm, that's not true. Sometimes that means that I can feel, part of it is I can feel the energy in a room.
Mhm.
So when people are in there and I see someone sitting off to the side who doesn't
Right.
who doesn't fit in or feel comfortable,
Yes.
I feel that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
therefore, I'm not saying I do all this all the time, but the aim is, okay, go over and talk to that person, make them feel welcome. Well, who see
Right.
doing that? My father and mother. This is something they did together, but my father can talk to anybody.
Mhm.
And bringing people to our home that didn't have really a home, that didn't, meaning they didn't have family nearby, or didn't have a lot of friends. Maybe they were new to the area. A lot of international students. I grew up near a college town. So international students, people he would be working with that don't have a family, and he intentionally would bring them over to our home
Mhm.
and make them feel welcome, and include them in on what we were doing. And I saw that from my father. Um, and so those are a couple of ways that, I'm very much like him. When we show up big, and we feel big. All right. Not big like pride. I mean, like, we feel deeply is big.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see similarities. I'm telling you, it's so important. Parents are so important.
I know.
They really
What about you?
are.
We've said a little bit, but yeah, I want to. that fun side. What else?
The first thing I can think about, first of all, I'm crying, y'all, because that's what I'm telling you. I've seen my father cry. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, Jess, that's good.
This question, I'm not gonna cry, y'all. I'm gonna try to like be strong with it. But anyway,
let it out.
I can remember, so in church we would have like testimony service, right? Where people would stand up and just kind of tell what God has done for them and how God has blessed them and how God is keeping them. So these testimonies that my father would have, my father and my mother were already divorced. And so he would visit the church every now and then. And sometimes I didn't know he was coming. So imagine like, oh my God, my father's here. But they would give him an opportunity to speak and just kind of like share words. And I don't think there was one time where he didn't cry. You know, like, and just, I felt so like, oh my God, like I could see why I'm so like sensitive. And then God blessed me with a stepdad who is the same way. Like, I'm like, so all these men, these big men, strong giants, right? They are sensitive in this way. So yes, they are basically there's a sensitive side to them. You know, people expect people that are very strong, and particularly Black men, to not cry. And I think about it over the years. They were very free with it.
Wow.
Everybody saying I'm sorry that I'm. Nope, just kind of let it flow, and then said what they had to say. And so, yeah, I think my sensitivity comes from that, you know, comes from him. I don't know if it's hereditary, but it definitely comes from him. My father was a very outgoing person. One of the sayings in his obituary was he never met a stranger. Literally, never met it. Like, he could talk to anybody, standing on any line, at any store, walking by. I never even remember him trying to start conversation with people and people not, you know, reciprocating back, like what, you know, responding to him. And so he didn't get mad. He just kind of like, okay.
All right.
Whereas I thought him like, so you don't hear me? You don't hear me talk? But he just kind of like it brushed it off his shoulder. So it wasn't, he didn't get upset. But definitely could have a conversation. Which showed me that he loves people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And he was interested in people and finding out about them. And so, yeah, I think I've gotten that from him. It's so crazy how you kind of think, you're like, where did I get this from? Like, why is this something that's important to me? Right? So my brand is about relationships and connection and community and uniting. And I'm just like, I saw it. Like I grew up seeing my father, and some people do it in a more structured, or I guess is the word conventional way, but he naturally was a people's person, you know?
Yes.
Starting conversation. Yes. And some of it wasn't any deep conversation. It was just kind of like, yes, I was watching the game, or random stuff. And yeah. So I think we're similar in that way, those two ways.
Yeah, I see that. I imagine your father, correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine your father helped people feel comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah, from what I experienced when I was with him, he definitely, I'm thinking about when I was in daycare. There's a lot I remember about daycare, but the teachers were very comfortable having conversation with him. Whether it's like he was sleeping and going out, like he made people feel comfortable. My teenage boyfriend, when he met him, in my head, I'm like, it's gonna be horrible, right? And I remember my teenage boyfriend just being really cool with him when we did see him, you know?
Yeah.
You know, some people don't connect with parents, regardless of what age you are. Like,
yeah.
And yeah, he enjoyed him. He made him feel comfortable. Of course, he had to tell him what he had to tell him, but
of course, you gotta. You're still a father.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yes. So we have brands that deal with love, right?
That's right.
Love all day. What's your famous line when you like introduce? When you
We're the podcast all about love, specifically and most importantly, the love God has for us, as demonstrated and how he brings two people together for marriage and how he's loving upon his singles.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the tag.
I'm gonna learn that whole entire like. I got a part of it. So that's what your podcast is about. As I stated, mine is about relationships and friendships and connection, and of course, ultimately love and God's love for us, right? So, what has your father taught you? Your earthly father taught you about love? That's a good one, right?
It is.
Ooh,
it is
a good one.
It's a good one. Give yourself a pat on the back for that one. Wow. I was thinking about this with my father. How do I say this in like a nice, succinct sentence? Like love is willing to grow and evolve. So meaning this, my parents are premarital counselors, and they've been married for almost 44 years. By the time people see this video, they'll have been married 44 years. And I am blessed to say that I've seen my parents' marriage evolve and grow over the years. And them as premarital counselors means it's volunteer. Like, this is a ministry thing they do together, and they've been doing it for many years. It's not a paid position. As far as I know, they get $0 for this. But when I tell you, I saw my father growing up, my parents reading books together on marriage. And, it was partly research, so to speak, for their couples. They always want to keep it fresh and be able to recommend good resources and so forth. But I would see them implementing these things. So I can see how the way my father communicates with my mother has evolved even in the last few years, and the way she communicates with him. And so when you see your parents, even in their 40th plus years of marriage, still, they're not stagnant. Love is not stagnant. Love says, you're worth I love you so much. I'm willing to develop myself. I'm willing to grow. I'm willing to become better so that I can love you better. And part of you said, oh my, just talking, I'm like, this is why you and I are such kindred spirits. We got such similar things from our fathers. And so, my father is, I saw my father and still see my father as someone who loved talking about relationships.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, in today's society, we give that trait to women. Women just like to get around and talk about relationships. That's what women do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That ain't all the truth, though.
Right.
And first of all, we all need to be talking about them. But but I saw my dad. We talked about this stuff growing up. Like, we would have conversations about marriage. We would have conversations about relationships, about communication, about healthy dynamics. And that wasn't considered a feminine thing. And so I see my brothers both comfortable talking about those things and having those discussions. And to me, it's a when I see a man, particularly a single man, who is comfortable and willing to discuss relationships and marriage, that's, to me, I'm like, that's amazing to me. So I saw that with my dad, that there was a sense of love evolves,
Yeah.
love grows. It's not stagnant. And it's not, he was not that that silent dad that or husband that was like, well, I'm gonna go watch, golf right now, and you know, don't talk to me for a while. Like he needed his time alone, but more like he talked and
Yeah.
he shared, and he helped me and my siblings see and understand stuff that, imagine if these things aren't discussed.
Right. Right.
So my father helped me see, well, I'll tell you that he set the bar high.
He did.
He
Yeah.
and my brother set the bar high of, I'm not just gonna go after any or hope any man comes after me, because I saw my father, the way he treated my mother, the way he developed himself, the way he grew, the way he spoke about marriage, the red flags he would bring out.
Mm-hmm.
That'll change your perspective.
That's
Girl,
good. That's
what about you?
now I'm like trying to like soak in everything that you said. Shown you through love. You use the word evolve, right? Like their love has evolved, but also
Right.
just him as a person and
Yeah.
how he loves.
Yes.
We was having a conversation about that last week, right? You like seeing him a certain way when you were younger, and then just
Yeah.
understanding him more and how
Yes.
he showed love
Yes.
and how it affected
Yes.
him as a kid, but how that didn't take away from him giving the love that he had.
And love is demonstrative. I mean, that's a
Big word.
yeah, love shows
Yeah,
itself.
yeah.
I got that, again, I saw that with my father, that, love isn't in your head. Okay. You know how they'll talk about like,
In your head.
meaning like, well, I love you, girl, I love you, or boy, I love you. Do I gotta say it all the time? And I've heard some good stuff about that lately. Like, let people love you. Like, don't judge people the way they show up. So like, I'm not, everyone's different. But what my dad taught me about love is demonstrative. So you speak it,
Yes.
you show it, you act on it. It's not something that you just think about and think good thoughts about someone. So
Yeah.
I saw my dad constantly building my mom up.
Yeah.
He still does that. He still will say like, your mom is blah 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 blah, and he'll just say this like beautiful thing about her, right? And he would say that to me and my siblings. So I've seen with him, you don't just love doesn't just evolve or stay in your head. It's something that you show, you speak it, you act on it, all of those things.
Yeah. Love is definitely a action word.
Yeah.
Sure. I could take this question in so many ways, because if you know a person who is dealing with alcoholism, what can come from that, right? How life can be. So you have a person that's married with a child and who is also an alcoholic. So
Yeah.
of course there's at times broken promises and the lack of love shown at times. But one thing my father, or one of the many things my father did, was tell me he loved me. And I think I had to understand that, what that fully meant, as I got older, because as a child you believe it, and then when you start to mature and understand what love is a little bit more, you're like, no you don't, because you would do this, right?
Yep.
And then you get older and you have more experiences, and you're like, for me it was, no, I think he loves me, but he has a problem. You know what I mean? And sometimes And everybody has some type, I don't like people, we all struggle with something, whether we say it or not.
Yes.
It doesn't take away from the person you are and who God created you to be.
Yep.
And so as an adult, full grown in my 30s, I had to be like, not had to, but I realized that, yeah, my father does love me, but he has this struggle. And so because this struggle unfortunately stops him from doing certain things, being certain places, not that he can't take accountability for it. And I've seen him try to get it right and then fall, and get it right and then fall. But I as an adult, I was like, no, my father does love me. He has this struggle, which is hard to stop and break. And so what I do appreciate is that he would tell me, right? And I do know when somebody means it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Some people say it and they're like, damn, you don't mean that. You're just saying it because you have to or whatever. But I knew my father loved me. And he didn't get off the phone without saying it. But of course, I also learned what love was not,
Yeah.
like because of his addiction. But then again, yeah, because of his addiction, there were things that he could not do. He promises he did not keep. Maybe he wanted to.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
And so, as women, we look at relationships sometimes through the vision of how we were raised with our own father.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine, right? And
so
practically, I don't want a person who is an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
I want a person who loves people.
Yes.
Right? I don't want a person who he didn't have in-depth conversation like your father, but I want one.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have conversation with my husband and talk about different things. So he taught me that love is different and comes and shows up in different ways.
Yes.
And to be open, right? To be open. Like I said, I feel like my father loved people. And what do? We show love. Like God placed us on this earth with, not by ourselves, right? But with other beings. And so I'm drawn to like talk and have conversation and connect with people. So yeah. And
this is one reason why we're such good friends.
Yes.
We love to talk.
Me too.
And not just like, oh, how was your day? But we'll go from that to talking about something.
Love is definitely going to come up. Relationships is definitely going to come up some way, shape, or form. Because my thing is like, you know me, I'm like, there's always a root.
Yeah.
Like people, when you have conversation with people, there's always a need is going to come up, something that they're passionate about or they're concerned about. And so I'm like, why do they feel like this? And so my mind starts to go like how are they raised? Like who were they brought up around? And what did their parents teach them? Or what were their experience like in school? Like, so yeah.
Yes. I think it's good though, because, I think one of the things I've heard you speak about your father is just that he, there were things that hindered his life, that were not healthy in his life, but you recognize the love that he did have, and you made an important point that everybody has their issues. And I think it's important, again, this is, as we get older, it's not guaranteed, but hopefully as God brings us on our own healing journey and healing path, that we see the things that we did not see, or we wished we would have seen, we can see it through a more redeemed lens of that God was on a process with that person, and that they had or have their own inner wounds that they're working through. And what didn't mean they didn't love, but there were some things that hindered them from showing up in the way that you, let's be clear, you wanted or you expected. And I think that can really open up doors of allowing people to love you in the way that they can bring, when you recognize that. And I that was something that's something you've helped me realize too, is what's the good we see in this person. We can spend all day and all night being like, well, this person didn't do this,
Right.
this person didn't do that.
Right.
And
that's the world we live in. Our world always, I feel like, comes from a negative viewpoint of
yes.
it. Right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm just thinking about the news. Do they say breaking news? A child was saved? Like, breaking news. We have 4,000 graduates this year at this particular school. Breaking, like,
right.
Never
that. Never that. And the other day, literally not last night, the night before, I lost sleep because I woke up early before my alarm and my mind was on a situation that had happened that day at work that I was fuming about. Like, I was angry and about this situation, and particularly how I was upset about it. And I remember it was sort of consuming my thoughts. And God bless the Lord. God bless God. He helped me see, sorry about New York City traffic, party outside. But help me see the situation through a different lens, a different perspective of, just so you know, Ruth, you have shown up in your life and done this very same thing to me. You've done this very same thing that you're so angry about, and you're imperfect. You've done it to me. And it really helped shift my focus the rest of the day. It didn't consume my thoughts, and I was able to let it go in that moment of like, you're right. And that's the reality. And I think showing up in life where this person, whether it's a father or whoever, is disappointing me in this way. Wait, have I ever done that?
Yeah, our kids, our students will give us that vision in a minute.
A hot second.
I've been mid telling a child like, and then God will bring it to my mind like, but you've done that. And then, God is funny.
Sure is.
It's fathers, parents, and then teachers.
Right.
For real, my father, I feel like I had to, God really taught me how to love my father, because we went through a lot of stages of me just trying to understand him. Like, what? Like, why would you give him to me? Like, well, I don't understand. One time I remember it was like parent teacher night. And I remember looking at one of my classmates' parents who, her father showed up. I don't remember seeing her mother, but her father showed up, and he had on this like suit. And in my head, I'm like, see, 8th grade. I remember it was 7th or 8th. It was junior high, middle school. And I was like, that's what I'm talking. Do you hear the noise in the back?
Yeah, I was like, oh, from Brooklyn to Queens.
I'll wait. Look, and my teacher was, I'll wait. So I just remember admiring, just thinking like, that's what I want right there. Like, why he just can't be normal?
Oh, no, I think that's such a normal, a normal, unfortunate thing that we think of as kids or whatever. Why is it that we have these expectations in our head? This is what things should look like.
Right.
This is what, a father should look like. This is what a husband should look like, or so forth. And then when they don't meet our own darn expectations, our own expectations, we're like, what's wrong with you?
What's wrong? We also for us both, well, you still had the stability, but we started off with quote unquote stability, like in structure. So when something goes off track, you're like, wait, it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, even children who don't necessarily grow up or start off like that, they know the difference.
Yeah.
I'm just, that's me trying to figure it out in somebody's mind for them. But you know when something is not stable or there's no structure, and you're like, and you don't necessarily have to grow up that way. You just know there's a difference.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
And to be clear, that's not my comment about not meeting our expectations. I don't mean that in a, there's a lot of hurt, a lot of toxicity that has gone on and continues to go on. And we don't need to make apologies or excuses for that. So that's not what I mean. I more mean that it is a human trait to have a vision of what something should look like. And it can be, if we really break it down, they can be kind of silly stuff. It can be some silly stuff, but they feel important to us. Like you wanted your dad to dress up in a suit, show up in a suit, you know? And and that's, I know, I remember having those same sorts of like, well, those same sorts of ideas. And I just think it's very much human nature to.
But it is, Ruthie. And then I went through a stage of, so you have my mother who is this church woman, right? And she's saved and she lives a certain life. And then you got my father who is doing I guess in a sense, the opposite, right? And so now he's cool at a certain point. Like, yeah, like what? Like, I'm just saying, like, the children they just all over the place. And it's
they are.
At that point, I don't even care if he wears a suit or not. It's like, yeah, put on some jeans with a hoodie and like, yeah, this is what I like. And evolving, you're like, I need you to be stable. I need you to be able to talk and tell me all about life. Like, it's weird, like how the different stages that I've gone through, and people, you know,
people go through
their parents.
It's true.
All right, I was reading, and I want you to give your thoughts on this. How long have we been going? I don't know. But yeah, guys, this is Ruthie and I, honestly, every day or every other day.
Daily basis, I was going to say.
Yeah, you know, just chime in if you want to comment under the post, under this video, please do.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
So according to Pediatrics of Franklin.com, unlike girls who model their relationships with others based on their father's character, boys model themselves after their father's character. I'll read it again. According to Pediatrics of Franklin.com, unlike girls who model their relationships with others based on their father's character, boys model themselves after their father's character. What do you think? And of course, you speak from the daughters, what they say about the daughters or the girls. So
that's interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if that's true. I think let's revisit this down the line after I'm married and see what I think. But I will say,
I feel like we've talked about this.
Yeah, just that no, there are certain things that I see dynamics of my parents that are very important to me. That I'm like, nope, I gotta have that. Yep. And I don't want to have their exact relationship, to be clear. I'm different than the two of them. I'm much like them. I have aspects of both of them. I'm not the same. So, there are certain dynamics that I don't necessarily want to have or anticipate, maybe because I'm just a different person.
Yeah.
And that person that I marry will be different. But there are definitely some things that my parents have modeled that I'm like, that has to be present, such as, they are best friends and have made it very clear to their children that that's the case, and that their priority, that they enjoy spending time with one another more than any other person. So things like that for sure. But there are certain aspects that I imagine. That's why I said talk to me later. But I imagine. But I will say I've heard girlfriends of mine say that they expected, like, oh, yep, I'm going to do things differently than my parents here. And then they found themselves naturally.
Yeah. I always say that I feel like we are not old, not 100%, but turning into our parents.
Yeah.
Right? And of course that you realize that more so as you get older and you mature and understand life, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I just did something that my mother would do. I just did something that my father would do. And we spend a lot of time as kids and teenage years trying to not like be them. Like, no, I'm not doing that. And you realize sometimes it's really not that bad. You're like, okay.
Right.
Right. It shows up a lot for me when I'm teaching.
Yes.
I see my mother a lot, and then I see my dad. Like a lot of my mother, I will say. Shout out to my mother. But yeah, I think I was telling you and my co-teachers, I was like, ooh, I like this in a guy. But why I like it is because I see my father.
Yes.
Display this type of either or attitude.
Yes.
And so, but then, there's things, of course, that I want to unlearn or I don't want to bring into my relationship, So, yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I definitely think we were designed differently. We just might not think that, but women and men were designed differently with different the word, attitudes and the way they see and respond to certain things, teachers.
Yeah.
Women and mothers have a very nurturing attitude, whereas men could be a little, and there are men who do have this, but then, men could be very stand up, don't cry, or, for some, not everybody, but created wired a little bit different.
And you need both. I think that's going back to the start of this convo of, I think sometimes as a society, we're confused about what we're supposed to be celebrating. It's like, we should celebrate women. My gosh, I will absolutely champion that all day. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we don't, particularly in the era we're in right now, we don't, it's like we're confused about how to honor men as well. And I think just, I'll tell you, I have needed both at times in my life, I've needed both it's okay to cry. Yes. Tell me what's going on. And I've also needed the girl, get up.
First of all, my those tears. My stepdad, I remember years ago, maybe in my maybe 30. I might have been 30 when I died. But I was going through something and it was bad. And so I came over to my parents' house and we're talking about it. And back in the day, and sometimes even now, like sometimes I need to sleep. Just, the situation calls for me. I'm like, and I just want to go to sleep. And not that I'm thinking like it's going to change. Maybe it will. In my head, I was like, it's going to change once I wake up. But I remember going, I just want to go to bed. I just want to sleep. And my stepdad was like, no, you don't. We're going to work through this. We're going to get through this. Right? Like I know. And I remember going, I'm tired. I don't have it in here right now. So he was just very, not like, it wasn't hard, but he just was like, nope, we're going to get through this and we're going to work through it and it's going to be all right.
Yes.
You don't got to go to sleep. And so I appreciate that. So that part, because some dads are gonna be like, no, that's my. Come on, no, I'm gonna take
Right.
everything. And in a sense, he did take care of it, but he wanted me to understand you just can't sleep situations off. Like you can't throw things because they got to be dealt with. And
Right.
I don't tell my
Right.
stepdad, who I don't call stepdad, but yeah, I love him.
Yeah, it is. It's important. I think that's, I pray, we get to experience parenthood someday. And I think just from our conversation, something I want to bring in is to show up as what God has given me. We need whatever you bring, that's going to be needed as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
But you have that counterpart to, the two of you together make up the full of who God is.
Yes.
So
yeah,
both how a woman loves and how a man loves together reflect how God loves. And so no one person, and I like what you said too, some men do show up more nurturing, some women do show up more like dry those tears.
Yeah.
So there are stereotypes that not everyone follows. But the point is, together you should model
Mm-hmm.
the fullness of God's love. And also I pray
Mm-hmm.
God gives me grace to recognize that I will bring in my own stuff as a parent. And I have yet to meet a family where that wasn't present, where there weren't issues present,
Right.
and where parents didn't their own trauma and background and issues didn't affect their children. It just does. You work at it, you try your best, but I pray that I will have the grace for my own self to recognize when, yep, I didn't show up right here, but there's mercy and grace each and every day.
Absolutely. So good. Mercy, grace, mercy and grace. So last thing, and crew, I really do thank you guys for just watching this video to the end.
Thank you.
Fathers are so needed and important. We can learn so much from the good decisions that they've made, and as well as the not so good decisions that they've made. And I like I said, I hope someone is encouraged and inspired to continue building a relationship with their father.
Yeah.
If you don't have one with him, you may not even know where he is. That God would help you through that. You know, I just feel like even if you don't know him, never met him, that affects your life.
Yep.
And how you show up in this world.
Yes.
And so, yeah. So we can go out with kind of like I don't know if you want to like thank your father, spend time, thanking him and appreciate loving on him for the next few seconds.
Ooh. Yeah. I will just say thank you, Pops, for modeling for me. I call it the fight for joy. I didn't talk about that earlier, but I've always seen you pursue the joy of the Lord, that even though there have been some tough times, that you always fought hard to stay grounded in Christ, to speak the truth, and keep filling up your faith, surrounding yourself with faith-filled people. And you spoke that over us and over your kids. So thank you for modeling for me the fight for joy, the fight for truth. Thank you for empowering me with your words and with your actions to show up as the woman God has called me to be and continues to shape, that you've never squashed my dreams and always given me the freedom to dream. And thank you for showing me that my voice matters, that I have one and I need to use it.
And you do.
I love you.
Mm. Woo. Yes, I want to just spend some time. Like I said, my father's not here, and so I just want to let you guys know, right, that my father was he was an imperfect man, but he was perfect for me as a father.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I miss him. And I just thank God that before he passed, God helped me to see the good in him, right? Not that he was perfect, because no one is, right? But one of the things, even up into my mid-30s, it was still a struggle, right? To try to understand him. But one of the last things that that God told me to do for my father was to just love him. Not try to fix him, not trying to understand totally why he was the way he was, but to just love him. And so what's funny is my father was, I think, full of love. He didn't make, like I said, the best decisions all the time, but he loved people.
Yes.
So I appreciate that about my father and what he brought to my life, and having that perspective before he passed. You know, not being bitter. Oh, and some people go through those stages. They got to go through those stages. But I just
Yep.
Woo! Thank God that I got to that place of being able to appreciate and honor him in that way. All right.
And you do. It's beautiful.
I don't want to not say anything about my dad / stepdad too, though, because this is a fatherhood series. So I think my Dad, I thank you for just stepping in, right? That's what somebody said, that's what stepdads do, right? They step in, just gaining a bonus dad, you know? My parents married 7 years after they were divorced. My biological father and my mother were divorced, and I'm like, ooh, what's 7, right? You know, with numbers, we're like, number of completion. He stepped in right on time, right? And just having, you know, what's funny? What I didn't receive, or what my father couldn't give because of his situation, my stepdad gives. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Dad, for you being an ear, a shoulder, a person that I can talk to. Because I do plan to share more, you know. I love starting conversation with my stepdad and just asking him questions and listening to his insight. And so I love you for that. I love you for taking care of my mother in the way that you do. And I remember one thing my stepdad said on the night of their the marriage, the night they got married, was, "You're not losing a dad, you're gaining one." So he said something like, "So you're not losing one, but you're gaining a dad." So yeah,
that's beautiful.
That is all, crew. I've released enough water for all of us. And so, yes, I pray that you guys enjoyed this video, and please do comment, share. Before we go, though, Ruthie, tell us about Heartbeats Podcast.
Heartbeats Podcast, I gave you all my tagline earlier, but essentially it's conversations like this, but with couples and hearing their story, how God brought them together, and what are sort of the lessons, the faith lessons and love lessons we learn from that about God, but also first, most of all about God, but also between his people, and then also getting to have conversations like this with singles and hearing how God has shown up in their life, how He provided and answered prayers, because He loves us so much.
Yes.
And again, talking about sort of the single experience as well, and what God has taught us in that season. So yeah, you can check us out, Heartbeats podcast, beats with a Z.
Can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Heartbeats Podcast _ and I'm on Facebook as well. Just type in Heartbeats. So
Every
would love
other
to hear from you.
Thursday, we do a live where we unpack the episodes. We've unpacked 2 episodes, right?
Yes, we unpacked 2 episodes. Yeah, so join in on those conversations. We're on IG Live Thursday nights, and those get spicy. So,
yep. Thank you, crew, for joining us. Until next time, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, all of you amazing men out there.